everyone. I'm Nithya Natarajan. I'm a family physician and mom to three boys.
Hi guys, I'm Sonal Patel. I'm a pediatrician and a mom of four boys, and welcome to Masala Chais with Dr. Aunties.
Today, we're going to be talking about the weirdest or worst parenting advice we got right after we had our babies. And I'll start with the first one. So, after we had our second baby, I was breastfeeding him a lot. I was holding him a lot, which is totally normal when you have a new baby. You're getting to know each other and learn each other. And I remember the nurse came in and she said, "You're holding your baby too much. You're going to spoil him." And I think he was 12 hours old. You cannot spoil a 12-hour-old baby. You can't spoil a 3-month-old baby. And so, she came in and told me that. And I thought, man, if this was my first baby, I would have really felt like I needed to not hold him and not respond to him. And I feel like that's one of the worst pieces of advice I've ever gotten. And I remember she got really offended when I told her I disagreed and I was going to hold him. And I was kind of like, well, this is how I'm going to parent my child. And there's no reason for you to be offended about it. But I think that was probably the worst piece of advice that I've gotten. How about you, Sonal?
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna actually piggyback on that one because I had two incidences. One was in residency. I did residency down south, and so
Mhm,
this just old-fashioned southern mentality. The baby was about 3 weeks old and was admitted,
mhm,
and grandma was sitting there, walked in, and baby was crying their head off. And grandma said, "Yeah, don't pick baby up because we don't want to spoil him and we want him to learn how to self-soothe." And I was like,
mhm.
well, your baby's 3 weeks old. Like, where is that coming from? Yeah, I had to pick up the baby. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to console this baby.
Yeah.
And then I had a client whose mother-in-law was OB. So again, the coming from that culture.
Mhm,
Um, and I asked her, was there, and I always do this too for my clients. I was like, hey, I know your mother-in-law is here. Do you want me to kind of say anything? And she literally said that my mother-in-law gave her the same advice. And her baby,
oh,
again, was only 3 weeks old. So I walked in there and I was like, I am so glad you're holding your baby more. That's going to help promote breastfeeding. It's going to promote
mhm,
good sleep and bonding. I'm just so proud of you, Mama.
yeah,
And I was kind of shocked too about that advice. I think that's the most prevalent advice
mhm,
that people get is like, don't hold your baby that much because you're going to spoil it. And that is so far from the truth. You
yeah,
cannot, what you're doing is you're establishing bonding that establishes trust, that establishes parenting. So I think we both can kind of relate to this as being moms of multiples. Each of our babies are been a little different, and I
mhm,
always say that once I honed into that, now my parenting styles slightly change for each of my children. Though the foundation is the same, our values are still the same, but like I know my 7-year-old does not respond to me kind of being stern because he gets all emotional.
yeah,
But my second oldest, until you get stern with him, he doesn't respond. And
mhm.
yes, but yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that one. That is like the worst advice.
Yeah, I hate
Worst
that advice
advice.
so
Advice.
much.
Yes,
It's seriously
yes,
the worst thing that I hear. And every time someone says it,
yes,
I'm like, no, no, babies need to be held and nurtured for them to
yes.
develop that secure attachment. And then once they've securely attached to you, they're going to be more adventurous and more willing to go out, and they're going to feel comfortable doing that. If they think that you're not going to be there for them or you're not going to get them, that's when they get more hesitant, I think, and they almost get more clingy because they feel like, why aren't you coming to get me? And I've noticed, at least in our kids, like the more time that I spent initially with them, the more independent they've been as they get older. I know some of that is their personalities as well, but I think creating that secure attachment, holding your baby when you want to hold them or when they want to be held, I think that's really important just for their development and for the development of your bond with them.
Again, just piggybacking against what you say, because when you go to your pediatrician's office, we do a really good job about assessing developmental milestones, gross motor, fine motor, um, communications, and there's like a five.
Mhm.
But we really never talk about the emotional development of these babies. And sometimes you will have parents come in and says, "Oh my God, this baby's been clingy to me this whole X amount of time." And I have to remind them, I go, till now, so like there's probably like 3, 4 month old babies. I was like, even till now, spent more time secure in a womb
Yeah.
than in this wide world. And
Right.
when they're emotional like that, it's because something's been bothering them or something is
Mhm.
not, yes, it's growth spurts, it's all of this, but also they want to have that security that I can go explore the world, but now it's too much for me. So I just want to go back to some place where I feel secure and safe. And again, a 4 month old has spent more time inside a womb than outside in the world. So it just relates to, and I agree with you too, because I see it in my kids that the more secure they feel and the more tapped into I am with them emotionally, the
Mhm.
more independent they are. They're like, oh, well, I can do this because X, Y, and Z. So, yeah. The worst postpartum advice that I've gotten. Um, honestly, I've had really, like with my mother and my mother-in-law both, I've had
Mhm.
really very champions of love your baby, be with your baby.
Mhm.
My mother-in-law unfortunately wasn't able to breastfeed her
Mhm.
children. It was just a lot of complications. And
Yeah.
so sometimes her advice about um, like, should we just give the baby a bottle? That's like always like, oh, your baby's crying, you just breastfed. And I think
Mhm.
it was coming from not an area of illness,
Mhm.
she's being ill willed for it. It was just what she knew that it's easier to see things objectively, right?
Mhm.
Breastfeeding is so subjective, like you don't know
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z, and there's so much. And I always say breastfeeding is more than nutrition. It's like
Mhm.
they're getting all this like cuddles and security.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
I think I've been very fortunate in that, but I do see ill advice all around me. So
Yeah.
at this point, guys, if you guys have some advice that you've been given and you're just like, what the, yeah, just please comment below and let us know. Oh,
Yeah, and we'll totally respond and let you know if that's something that, might make sense, or if it's something that makes no sense and you don't need to listen to it. And what you had mentioned about the formula bottle, I feel like a lot of people get told that, and they a lot of times they get told that even if their baby is growing well. And I think food fixes a lot of problems that are not hunger, and that happens with infants too. Sometimes giving them the bottle will fix a problem that wasn't hunger, but the issue with that is that then you're telling them not to follow their hunger cues, and that food is going to fix all these other things. And so I think that was a good point you made. I think a lot of the time people say to just give a bottle or give formula to fix the baby crying, even if the baby is just fed and maybe something else is the problem. Maybe they just want to be held, or maybe they need their diaper changed, or maybe they want to go to a new environment, and they can't tell you that. The only thing they can tell you is that they're not happy with what's happening at the moment. And so I think the bottle advice is something that I've heard as well, and that a lot of people hear is just top off with the bottle. But most of the time you don't need that, as long as your baby is growing well and everything is going okay with breastfeeding, if that's what you're doing for your family.
yeah,
But yeah,
definitely.
and like Sonal said, definitely drop your stories in the comments, and we'll be happy to reply.
Yeah. Okay, so just one last thing on this topic. I think sometimes we ourselves get resistant to the fact of, in the South Asian culture, there's a lot of like, stay in bed for 11 days, don't wash your hair. And you know what? I why not stay in bed for 11 days? Why not rest it up? I think we try to fight that. And
Mhm.
I would rather counter that. I think there's a lot of evidence behind it, for your healing and postpartum. We talk about postpartum so much that don't resist it. This is the only time. Yes, I know you want to get back on your feet. You want to feel like you are you're identifying with who you were before you had this baby. There's so much emotional going on with that. But on the same token, those parameters have been placed for centuries and generations because we, in this time we feel to expedite everything. Like we want to get better, like today. Like why weren't we better to yesterday? Why didn't I lose this baby weight like 2 weeks ago? I had the baby. Shouldn't
Yeah.
the baby weight come off? And in expediting issues and expediting our own healing, we're actually causing a lot of problems for ourselves. And I'm talking about us as women that we encounter, and we're like, well, why aren't we better now? It's because you didn't give the time to heal. And I think that's one thing that I encounter a lot. I'm like, I know you want to do this, but you've got to respect the space. You've been pregnant for 10 months. You think you're going to bounce back in 2 weeks and your weight's going to be gone? Like there's something wrong, you know? So,
I mean, it's your body has been through a lot, and delivery is a
mhm.
lot of stress on your body. It's a lot of stress on your baby. And there's a reason, and I don't know if Sonal and you're part of India, if they do this as well, but the first 3 months, the woman goes back and stays with her parents, because when you're with your husband's family, you're expected to do a lot. So for those first 3 months, that fourth trimester, traditionally you go stay with your mom, and your mom literally takes care of you so you can take care of your baby. And then now we're living in a time, if you're in the United States, where a lot of people go back to work before they even get to the end of that fourth trimester. And we're just not giving people the chance to heal and the chance to bond and the chance to really kind of grow into this new role. And I think that's something, just give yourself some grace, give yourself some time, and really take that chance to recover, because your body has been through a lot, and it's a huge transformation. It's a huge change in your life. So I totally agree. Like, really take that
Yeah.
time and rest.
I always thought that you went back to your mom's because you could yell at your mom and you can't really yell at your mother-in-law.
I mean, I guess that's there too.
Because you can be like, I don't want to do that. I want to just sit
Yeah,
here. You really can't talk like that to your mother.
that's true. That's true. All right, guys. So it was so fun talking about this today. Please, again, tell us like the crazy, weird stuff you've been told, and we will let you know if there's any evidence behind it, or as is usually the case, we can tell you that's totally crazy and ignore it. All
Till
right, thanks,
next
guys.
time.
Till next time. Bye bye.
Bye.